My name is Rachael Style. I struggled with anorexia, binge eating, and bulimia as an All-American cross-country and track runner, and I'm fully recovered at this point, but it was a long journey just to be able to even open up about all of it because I was so ashamed, and there were so many misconceptions surrounding eating disorders that just kept me silent. I felt that I needed to exceed expectations constantly. I was very much a perfectionist, so I felt like if I didn't achieve all the goals I had for myself and all the goals my coach had, that I would have to just struggle with these feelings of guilt and failure, and that I would never be fully happy with myself because I depended on my athletics and running for all of my happiness and success. My biggest fear, I thought, was losing running and gaining weight. I thought if I didn't control my food and my weight and I could no longer run, that I would just be unhappy for the rest of my life. I wouldn't be able to find success. I thought my relationships wouldn't be good because I thought as long as I had running and the control of food that everything would line up perfectly. And obviously I found that I could find happiness in other areas, but yeah, I was just scared of those feelings of failure. I believed that eating disorders only really happen to young women and women that weren't athletes specifically. I just thought it was a method of weight control almost. I thought it only happened to people who were at a very low weight. So when I was an athlete struggling, I thought, okay, well, athletes don't deal with this because they exercise and that's how they maintain their weight, and I just have to maintain my weight through food. I thought there was something wrong with me and that this just wasn't a big problem for athletes in particular. I also didn't realize that binge eating was an eating disorder, so when I was struggling with that, I just thought this is a matter of discipline and willpower, so it couldn't possibly be an eating disorder. And the fact that I was gaining weight, I thought, again, that's not an eating disorder because I'm not losing weight. I didn't think like that I looked to be the perfect picture of someone with an eating disorder. So yeah, that kept me quiet for a long time. And when you're so deep into what you're struggling with, it happens so gradually that you don't remember exactly what it was like to be in quote normal around food. You just suddenly realize you're at this point, but you think, oh, it's not that different from what everyone else is doing. Now that I'm so far removed and I look back at my journal entries from like 10 years ago, I see how disordered my thinking was. But again, I think when you gradually fall into an eating disorder, because you don't wake up one day and suddenly have an eating disorder, it takes time for it to develop. And I think that's why it was hard for people around me not to see what was going on. The red flags were popping up here and there, but again, it was very gradual. So I think when you find yourself deep in a struggle, it's just tough to see because of the gradual process it takes to get there. When I first reached out to my mom, I think she didn't know how to support because she didn't really see it as an eating disorder the way I was describing it. Again, because of all the misconceptions we have about eating disorders. So we eventually got to the point where she offered to get me professional help, and that's what I really needed. I needed her support to bring me to the professionals. And then from there, I really benefited from her just listening to my thought. Like I was finally speaking out loud about what I'd been going through for all these years. And it was so helpful to finally say what I'd been keeping in. So just having a listening ear, someone willing to support by learning more about eating disorders, even if she didn't fully understand what was going on, just having her yearning to learn more about what I was going through was very helpful. In terms of my coach, it was helpful having him support my recovery instead of just trying to run faster. He wanted my health more than fast times and performances. And ultimately, having his support with the recovery, I think I was able to recover quicker because I didn't have this pressure to try to lose weight again and try to run fast. I had to take on my own journey with that. Originally, I had a lot of doubts because I thought, oh, they're not going to believe me. They're going to say this isn't a real eating disorder. I should just shut up. I should just stop talking. I was very embarrassed, but the more I talked, the more I realized people were willing to listen, and there were more people reaching out to me saying that they struggled with similar issues. So after a while, I actually gained more confidence, and I started to feel this weight lift off my shoulders. I felt I was being heard for the first time in a long time, and honestly, I think my personality came out more than it had ever come out before because I grew up as a perfectionist, and showing that I was imperfect with this eating disorder allowed me to just be like, okay, people can still accept me even when I'm not perfect and when I'm not eating as well as they think I should or have this good relationship with food. Yeah, it allowed me to be imperfect and realize that that was okay. When you first tell someone, it is scary, at least for most people. And when I first did it, it's not that I was any braver than anyone else. I was terrified. I did it first by writing a note, basically an email to my mom, because I was so scared to say it out loud, and I was still in denial. I still had the thoughts that, oh, maybe it's not that bad. Know that if you're struggling with anything, you don't have to wait until it's bad enough. It made such a difference to reach out and get the support, and the biggest thing I've taken away from this whole experience was how important relationships are, and you need relationships like that. It doesn't have to just be from a family member. It could be from close friends, or even if you're on an athletics team, if there are teammates you feel close to, just anyone you can think of that might be receptive to hearing you out. People do want to help and support. So I can't emphasize it enough. Please reach out. I started running in silence.com back in 2012 when I was struggling with binge eating disorder. I wanted to write about my experience because it was the experience I was hoping to read, but I couldn't find it really anywhere on the internet. So I thought, okay, maybe I have to be the one to write this. And I honestly didn't think there would be other stories like mine out there. I thought it was mostly going to be about anorexia. So talking about my binge eating as an athlete was something I wanted to put out there and see if anyone else dealt with it. And as I started writing about my experiences with that, I realized, well, maybe I could put it into a book. So a few months later, after starting this website, I really went into detail with my experiences. It all started as journal entries just for myself. As far as I've learned about eating disorders, there's usually a combination of factors that can lead to an eating disorder. It can be genetic, partially genetic. It could be the environment we grow up in. I honestly grew up in a really healthy environment, but I think maybe the genetic factor of me, like being a perfectionist, that's how I was born. It's not something I learned. It was something I felt I was born with. And I feel like that played a huge role in combination with a sport that really emphasizes the importance of discipline, willpower, pushing hard, pushing past your limits. So maybe the environment I was surrounded with in the athletic world. Again, that is not to say that sports are bad. I think they offer so many benefits, but it's important to see when they can go too far in combination with something like being a perfectionist. Running was both difficult because it was tied with the eating disorder, but it also gave me time to feel free. I really loved long runs. So long runs, for anyone who doesn't know, in cross country and track is like going 10 or more miles maybe. Around there, you have a specific day where you do a long, slow run. I loved those because it gave me time just to think and be in tune with my body and feel thankful that I could run when I was able to do those kind of runs. It just gave me a lot of time to process and think and be thankful for my body. I also think reaching out to friends was so helpful. It allowed me to see how important relationships were, because for so long I'd only had this poor relationship with running and food. So to see that I had friends that wanted to support me and be there for me was a huge part of that recovery process. And writing, even though it was about eating disorders at the time, it allowed me to really process what I was going through and see the good things that resulted from the recovery process. Hopes reminded me how important it is to tell our stories when we're ready, and how helpful it is to be able to connect to other people who are struggling. And just seeing other people connect with this story and maybe take something from it for their own life, I think it just shows we all are maybe struggling with something. And just to be able to see that we can all support each other is so powerful. Just the idea of it being called hopes, that feeling of hope, that was something I really needed through my recovery process. It was something in the depths of the eating disorder I thought there was no hope left. And to realize in certain moments through the recovery process that there was hope, like little glimmers, it just helped me to keep pushing through the recovery process. And I think having these conversations through hopes allows people to have hope that there is an end in sight and recovery is absolutely possible. I guess another part of having that hope is being able to work with professionals to show you a path to a life that's much more free. Some people think they'll find freedom in their eating disorder. I was one of them. And when I was actually working with someone who was walking alongside me and had the professional background for this, it gave me a glimmer of hope that I could have happiness outside of the eating disorder. So professionals are huge, and yeah, knowing you're not alone.